If you want to know how to effectively feel and process big emotional triggers to start healing, then this video is for you. So why do we even experience these heavy emotions? Like, where are they coming from? So our nervous system is constantly scanning our environment for cues of safety and danger. And when it detects something in our environment that's similar to the stored trauma in our body, can even be as subtle as a smell or a sound, it then wakes it up and you begin to relive that same experience in the present moment from the age it got frozen in time because it didn't get a chance to process. And that's why you're showing up with this disproportionate reaction to a situation, because it's not really about the event itself. So trauma is actually the stored activation from an event that we didn't have the proper skills to cope with at the time, so it becomes trapped inside our body. And because of this, it's constantly signaling to our brain that there's a threat, and then our body is trying to find ways to deal with it, and it can do this through reenactment, which means we subconsciously recreate similar situations where the event is likely to happen again. And that's exactly why we choose partners that are similar to our emotional, unavailable caregivers. It's an attempt to confront and process that unresolved trauma. But the completion has to happen internally where it resides, not externally, in order to lose that compulsion to repeat and repeat those same relationship dynamics. And when we're stuck here in these trauma responses, so are our perceptions and feelings. We end up developing negative beliefs about who we are from these experiences that we then carry with us. When we take a bottom-up approach to healing, which means working with the body, we can change those beliefs that got formed at the root level. Because beliefs aren't something that we think, right? It's something that we feel, which means we cannot override these negative beliefs with simply repeating positive affirmations to yourself. And I'm sure you probably tried this and wondered, why isn't it working? Well, this is why. You have to first pull out the roots by healing the trauma that's generating it, so you can then plant in new positive beliefs and give it a foundation to actually grow on. So every time we get triggered, it's an opportunity to complete that trauma response and move towards healing. So the purpose of these messages that come up in our body is not to hurt us. It's to show us what we need to work on. And I just want to say that healing is not a linear process. And just because you feel worse one day, it doesn't mean that you're actually getting worse, okay? You're just becoming more aware of what was previously unconscious to you. It's coming to the surface for you to shift it. Your brain has recognized your arrival to then clear out deeper layers of your past. So what generally stops us from feeling is because we become terrified, fearful of those physical sensations in our body, because we don't think that we're able to come out of it and that we'll get stuck there, almost like a vortex that's sucking us into it. But when we continue to avoid these painful experiences by repressing and pushing it down, we only then create more pain over time. Because whatever you resist will grow in intensity, and it can then later manifest as health issues. So to heal trauma, we need to feel it. But we need to do this at a slow pace. Slow pace. Trauma happens because there's too much, too soon. So the goal here is to slow things down, and this is referred to as titration. So it's the act of feeling just a piece of that response, an edge of that emotion, and taking breaks in between or pausing when it's too much and coming back to it at another time. And by doing this, it also helps to detach that fear we have associated with being present in our body, because every time we learn to experience the activation without getting pulled into that vortex, we develop more confidence in our ability to handle it the next time, and we realize, oh, it's actually not that bad. And emotions only last a couple of minutes anyways. So if we were to force ourselves to sit through the intensity that we don't yet have the capacity to tolerate, we can actually end up re-traumatizing ourselves because that emotion won't have the proper safety and resources it needs to become integrated. So it gets stuck there again. So that means that the goal here is to build our capacity to contain, to handle, to feel these emotions so we can then release them out of our system. So just like you, when you start exercising, you would have to start with the basics to first build up your endurance, your strength. So it's the same concept here. We don't want to go into it full force. So we do this by practicing daily grounding exercises to build our window of tolerance. So this can look like orienting to your space, using your five senses to move back into the here and now. So what can I hear? What can I feel? What can I see, touch, and taste? And making a list of resources that help bring you back into regulation and implementing this as a routine throughout your day to return back to your body. This is not about distraction, okay? Where you go to things like scrolling on your phone, looking at social media, that only numbs out your experience. Rather, we want to do things that support in shifting us back to becoming more present. So this can look like being in nature, going for a walk, dancing, listening to some music. So we have to work on healing that relationship we have with our body because trauma causes us to disconnect. So we do this through practicing interoception, which is the skill of becoming aware of the sensations, of the feelings in our body and being able to objectively label it. That helps us better regulate our emotional state. So for an example, you're noticing that you feel this heaviness in your chest, maybe this pressure and weighing down feeling in your shoulders, and just observing what's happening. Noticing the textures of the emotion, the shape, the temperature of it. So learning to sit and be present with those sensations without any judgment, just being curious of your experience, allowing them to move through and complete so the body can then move forward in time rather than getting fixed on the stories in your mind. Because when we try and think through our emotions, it actually only interferes with this process because emotions live in the body, not the mind. So when we become the objective observer of our experience, we're able to then separate from our thoughts, from our emotions, from these sensations. And this alone helps us to then change and shift what we're feeling because it's no longer consuming us. Okay. So the next step is to move back and forth between that feeling of discomfort back to something that feels more light or expansive. So such as bringing up in your mind a memory where you felt safe with someone, or scanning your body and finding a part that feels more calm, more neutral, to produce those positive feelings and using it then as a resource to soothe the activation. So this is called pendulation. And it helps us to not get stuck in that negative feeling. And so your nervous system can return back to a state of calm and the trauma can then get transformed. So you can also support your system through touch by placing one hand on your heart, the other hand on your belly, and just feeling into that sense of containment, supporting it through that emotion. And with every exhale, taking a sigh so you can reset your nervous system, releasing those stress chemicals. It may feel worse in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie to you, because it's the first time you're becoming aware of these feelings that you were previously dissociated from. But as you stay with it, continuing to move back and forth from the activation, that discomfort, to that resource, that place of safety, either if it's external or internal, it will begin to dissipate and go through that natural cycle of discharging the energy from those past experiences so you can heal it, you can transform it. So I hope this video was helpful and made sense for you. And if you have any questions, you can simply leave them down below in the comments.